Hi everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's MTPredictor video, I would like to look at how to trade when the picture's clear, in particular using our DPs on our higher time frame charts. And I'd like to start by looking at a great example that's just unfolding on the Nifty over there in India. But as usual, let's start with our risk disclaimer. Remind you, all examples in these videos should be considered as hypothetical. No trades are actually taken, they're just shown for illustration and training purposes only. Remind you there's a risk of loss in trading and investing. I'll put that another way. All professional traders know and understand, but more importantly accept that losses can and will and do unfold. The trick is keeping the losses small, but there always will be losing trades when trading. All trade decisions are your own sole responsibility. Right, let's have a look at the 3-minute chart of the Nifty that's unfolding today, which is December the 13th. You can see here we had a couple of setups. There's a buy setup here, a TS2 buy setup, and a TS3 Holy Grail sell setup. Our MTP trend is black, which indicates the trend is in the process of reversing or potentially swapping in this particular area. So how do you decide which ones are to take and whether this is a clear picture? Well, as usual, we go out to the higher time frame. This is a time frame between 3 and 5 time frames higher. So if you're trading a 3-minute chart, it would be the 15-minute chart. If you're trading, say, a 4-hourly Forex, it would be the daily. If you're trading daily stocks, then it would be a weekly chart. So it's a logical time frame between 3 and 5 time frames higher. So how do we do this? Well, let's just do training mode here and go back to about here somewhere. What we look for is the last pivot high or low, or the last swing into the last high or low initially. You can see here we had a low, the market moved down to this low, so this was the last swing into the low. So we come back to this pivot here, we right mouse click, we do decision point. This is an area on the chart in advance, so this is here before the market even gets there. It's ready for you for potential resistance. Let's see what the market did. It went up into that level. It actually gave us a automatic VS sell. It then went up a bit. It then started to come back down. There we go, it started to come back down. But the important point is that it was basically finding resistance at this level. If the market had gone through this, then the next resistance would have been off this high pivot here, would have been up here. As the market is starting to decline down, the next support would be off this pivot low here, right mouse click, do decision point. So as you can see, these levels are on the chart in advance. So let's see what happens. I'll just close the trading mode. It will just reload the chart. And as you can see, the resistance was found at this area here. The market then came down, and as you can see, is now finding a low at our DP, again, that was on our chart in advance from this previous low here. Obviously, this one's not needed because we didn't go through this level. But can you see how the chart is a really clear picture? In other words, it's finding resistance at this level quite clearly. So let's go back down to the shorter time frame chart, which is the time frame chart you're looking to actually trade, and then see how you can decide which setups to take that fall in the direction of that large degree trend. So we'll just wait for a second while it just reloads the chart. Right, there we go, there's the chart reloaded. So can you see now how this is our 15-minute resistance? So do you see how the market went up, went into this level for resistance, reversed back down, and then started to decline? And look where it went to. It actually went right to this next higher time frame support, and now we're looking to rally off that particular level there. But let's have a look at these two setups. So as this is resistance, do you think it would be better to take buy setups or sell setups as the market is finding higher time frame sell resistance? Well, the obvious answer is the sell setup. So therefore this TS2 buy setup would not be a really good one to take, but this Holy Grail sell setup here would be an excellent one. Why? Because the Holy Grail setup is the initial correction, which is what we had here, after the initial decline, which is what we had here, of an important or higher time frame resistance. So in other words, the market came in to make a high at the 15-minute DP, made an initial decline down, which in Elliott wave terms would be wave 1. We're then looking to make an initial correction back up, which would be a wave 2. And ideally this should subdivide into an ABC, which is what it does here. So if we place the analysis on, why is this nicknamed a Holy Grail trade setup? Well, it is because if this is a wave 2, then normally we'll get a strong wave 3 move off that. In other words, in Elliott wave terms, this is a 1, this is a 2, this is a 3. If I clear this all off and I place our Elliott wave major, counts down here. Oops, it should be finding that as a wave 3. But if I place the analysis back on again, you can see that's exactly what we're looking to do. Come down here into the typical wave 3 WPT. At the very least, this would be a profit of 3.4R or 3.4 times greater than the initial risk. Here we're using position sizing to work out the number of contracts to keep the risk less than 2% on a sample. Well, let's change this over to a rupee account. You can set up different accounts here. So let's put the rupee account here. So this then does the number of contracts based on 2% on a 100,000 rupee account. You can see here you can quite easily change your accounts depending if you're in different currencies. You can see here euros, default account we had as dollars, or if I do a rupee account here, or slightly smaller rupee account. So let's say 65,000 Indian rupees. So the question being is, do you really want to come out at this first target here? Well, if you do, it would be a 3.4R profit, which would be very good indeed. But what I've been trying to suggest in some of our MTPredictor training webinars is, rather than try to come out early, try to look to go to the next higher time frame support and resistance. So this would mean grabbing, dragging this and coming all the way down here to your next support level. Remember, this would have been on the chart in advance, and if you had have done this, well, then the profit at this level would have been almost 15R, or 15 times greater than the initial risk. That's what's so good about these Holy Grail trade setups, and why we've nicknamed them Holy Grail. Not because they have a high percentage of winners, but because when the winners come through, the winners are large in relation to the initial risk. In other words, small losses, big profits. This is what professional traders are striving to do, and this is exactly what the Holy Grail trade setup is designed to do. But can you all see how this was a good looking setup? And the whole idea of this video is to show you that the best times to look to trade with MTPredictor is when the large degree picture is clear. Remember, markets go through cycles, so 50% of the time the market will be random, so basically you can't do any trading at all because the pattern won't be clear. 50% of the time you get a clear pattern, and within that clear pattern you then look to try and do trade setups that fall in the direction of your larger degree trend direction. So that's why I wanted to look at this example, because here the 15-minute DP caught the high really nicely. It went up into that high and then reacted down beautifully. The market then went down to this 15-minute DP support. In other words, everything was working really nicely indeed. So these are the kind of setups you want to try and look for at MTPredictor. And this is a great example that's literally unfolded today, which is December the 13th, on the 3-minute Nifty. And as you can see, the result of this Holy Grail sell setup for a potential 15R profit would be a very good profit indeed. So a great example of how to use MTPredictor when the picture is clear, using the higher time frame DPs on the higher time frame chart, and an example of our Holy Grail trade setup. So a good day for our Indian customers using MTPredictor today, December the 13th.